right, gentle Cap.
That's all right for some.
Aren't you happy in your work?
Don't worry, it's your turn next.
Glad you've only been down here a fortnight.
I think he really simply, John Mills, enjoyed his craft. You have a real picture of someone throughout who loved acting from 6 years old when he got the bug on stage at school, right till his 90s. He loved it and thrilled to it, felt that excitement.
Willie?
Yes, Miss Maggie?
Come up.
I haven't finished yet, Miss Maggie.
Come up.
If you study him as he's acting, he actually looks straight through you. He can actually see you straight through you, and yet there's a warmth about his gaze. Why he lasted so long as he did is because he had this everyman quality that actually managed to speak directly to the audience, especially to men.
Look!
Well, they did it. I congratulate you, Titus.
And I thank you, Titus. Class here tomorrow, Bill.
When he's allowed to really express the full range of his ability, he is one of our finest actors.
What's that? The other spring's gone. Shall I pull up, sir?
What the hell? She's done 600 miles over every kind of stuff. Only got 4 to go. Bash on!
John Mills was born in 1908 in Norfolk, England.
His full name is Lewis Ernest Watts Mills, which he would later change first to Jack, and then John, which somehow fitted him, it suited him. He is a John Mills. It's kind of persona that he embodied. His father was a maths teacher who later became a headmaster, and his mother worked at a local theatre. She worked in the box office there. And there you sense maybe a very young John, or very young Lewis as he was taken along to look around the theatre, maybe a little bit of an early sighting.
Really taking part in the amateur dramatics at his school, inspired by his much older sister, who was 14 years older than him and was already a professional dancer by the time he reached secondary school. Her name was Annette. She would later have a career in television and on the stage, but she was always trying to get him into dance. He performed in Midsummer Night's Dream at secondary school, and that was where he really got the bug for performing. But his parents were absolutely convinced that there was no future in it. Presumably they didn't want to have 2 kids on the stage. He was encouraged by his dance teacher. He got some work in a revue in London as a song and dance man.
Even at the very early age, he said his 2 great role models were Jimmy Cagney and Fred Astaire, and he sort of imagined himself to be a combination of the 2, or at least aspire to become a combination of the 2. So he had a kind of idea that he wanted to be not just a straight actor, but also an entertainer, someone who could do pretty well anything, sing and dance as well as act.
So he took a role in a theatre company called The Quaints. This was a touring theatre company, but they were an international touring company, and they were travelling around the Far East. And in Singapore, he was in a production of Journey's End where Noel Coward spotted him. And although Noel Coward found the whole company quite bewilderingly rapid in its changing over of productions and moving on, he saw something in John Mills and wrote him a letter, and almost then became a sponsor or a mentor for him. By the time Mills and Coward were both back in London, Noel Coward cast him in Cavalcade, gave him another couple of roles, offered him roles in films, and really helped kickstart his career.
Mills began working in a series of quota quickies throughout the 1930s, but by the end of the decade, he was appearing in prestige pictures, such as 1939's Goodbye, Mr. Chips. The outbreak of World War II would then change his life and everyone else's dramatically, and that conflict would be frequently returned to throughout his career.
notice, at this point in John Mills' career, that he joined the army, that he went to war in 1939. He joined the Royal Engineers and became a second lieutenant and spent 3 years in the army. Not in any kind of theatrical corps, he was a fully fledged soldier in that respect. And I think this has a very important effect on him. And it has a very important effect on our understanding of John Mills and his persona, that he came to stand for something when it came to Britain and World War II. And I think a lot of that comes from that experience. He was invalided out with a stomach ulcer, but even then, once he came home, he immediately went back to the film industry and joined the cinematic war effort, because he was still, in a sense, a soldier and wanting to fight the cause.
Our turn now. Off we go like a bomb.
Do you want us to drop a flare first time over?
No, no need. The fire's good enough. I can see the helmet already.
Here we go.
Steady. Straight ahead. Bomb's gone. Shot!
This was a film that was really financed as a propaganda machine by the British government. And it's a film which argues that the British war effort is going incredibly well. It's amazingly patriotic, a sort of a career-determining part in a way for him. He plays a bomber pilot in a bomber called T for Tommy, and he has, there's 2 extended sequences, one where he's heading out on at the beginning of a raid. And this is used to illustrate how the RAF have won the Battle of Britain, and so therefore John Mills' bomber will fly safely because of the Great British Victory. And then afterwards, at the very end of the film, he's flying back having successfully delivered his load. And around his arrival is the most surging patriotic music. He is the sort of the symbol of the victory to come, and the final monologue delivered by the voiceover, "The day of freedom for all men is on its way," is delivered over his bomber returning triumphantly home.
In the same year as The Big Blockade, Mills starred alongside Noel Coward in another propaganda film, In Which We Serve. It would also be the beginning of a long-running partnership with director David Lean, with whom he would soon star as Pip in Lean's celebrated adaptation of Great Expectations. Having achieved stardom as a result, he was the ideal choice to play Captain Scott in 1948's Scott of the Antarctic.
In the years that had followed In Which We Serve, John Mills had established a very good relationship with the great director David Lean. He was one of his reliable actors he turned to. He was in This Happy Breed. He was the young Pip in Lean's Great Expectations. So he was one of those actors that Lean would turn to give a very strong character performance. In the post-war era, John Mills rapidly became a marquee name. He rapidly became a star. But in very British terms. He never went to Hollywood. He made a few Hollywood films, but he never took a contract with a studio. He stayed here and became a British star. And he seemed to take the kind of war heroism out into bigger subjects and more possibilities, because he had that about him, that magnetism. So he was the natural choice to play Scott. Because he had that kind of redoubtability about him. We could believe he would go to the Antarctic, and he would do it in that very British way that the film portrays. That it's really as much about adventure and discovery and a world of mystery that still existed in the late 1940s.
Something's gone wrong, hasn't it? You can't go ahead.
Well, we can go ahead, all right. But the Treasury won't let us have the money, that's all.
Is that very bad?
Yes. Means I get the men, but not the backing. I should have to make a public appeal.
Well, why don't you?
You see, if I do go ahead with this show, I might lose my chance in the Navy. And that would mean looking for some other sort of job. And that would mean discomfort and unpleasantness for you. As far as I'm concerned, of course, I'd take it on any day.
As far as we're concerned, Con, any day. You knew the Antarctic long before you knew me. I always knew you would go back. And I'm not the least jealous. As a matter of fact, I don't think I'd love you quite so much if you didn't. Don't move, Con. Do you remember that morning we were walking along the sands just after the tide had gone out? I asked you what exploration really meant to you.
Yes.
The sands were still wet. And you said, the fascination of making the first footmarks.
I'm a very, very lucky man.
By the time he made Scott of the Antarctic in 1948, John Mills was actually billed above the title, so he became very popular quite quickly. Scott was one of his great heroes, and so he was delighted to be able to take the part. In fact, he was so enthusiastic about it that he'd spoken to Scott's widow and was able to acquire Scott's watch, which was retrieved from his body, which he wore throughout the film. Extraordinary sort of talisman for him. This is really the first time we see John Mills in the great sort of stoic character, a man of determination, quiet, a man who just has an ambition and decides to go for it. Scott, of course, in his expedition to the South Pole, wanting to be the first man there, discovering that Amundsen got there first, and all the disappointment gives him all that kind of character to sort of play with. And it is a very stolid film. It is a wonderful performance. It does have that sort of, he has that quiet drive, that sort of inner thing that actually, almost a demon that drives him on in face of impossible odds. I think this is really the first time we see John Mills as the full actor of character and his developing screen persona.
This wind! Help us on the way back, though!
In 1952, John Mills starred opposite Dirk Bogarde in The Gentle Gunman.
Hello, Terry.
What the devil are you doing over here?
I came over to see you. I had to see you.
You didn't need to go blowing up half London to find me now, did you?
What went wrong, Terence? The boys were expecting you.
I was in at the death, wasn't I?
Were you down on the platform?
I was. There was no one hurt.
No one.
Maybe a rat or two, but none of the English variety.
Terence, you're still with us, aren't you?
Now look, we mustn't be together, see? And if you're followed, don't lead them back to the boy. That's what I wanted to tell you.
Are you still with us, Terry?
One thing at a time. Let's get out of here first.
Terry,
Come on, out with you.
I want an answer first.
The Gentle Gunman, which comes in the 1950s, it really seems to me a desire from John Mills to step out of the nobility that he had come to embody and try something darker, try something more naturalistic. The style of acting of the time, you know, would have been very much in keeping with that. And here you have the story of an IRA group in London during World War II who are conflicted by what they have to do. So it's about a group of men, particularly two brothers, played by John Mills and Dirk Bogarde, who come to think that the mission is wrong. And they are, you know, seen as turncoats by the IRA. They turn against the cause because it's too much for them. So it's a heroic struggle.
Soon after The Gentle Gunman, Mills reunited with director David Lean and 1954's Hobson's Choice.
Come with me. Shut the door. Come here. Show me your hands, Willie.
They're dirty.
Aye, they're dirty, but they're clever. They can shape the leather like no other man's that's ever come into the shop. Who taught you, Willie?
Why, Miss Maggie, I learnt my trade here.
Hobson's never taught you to make boots the way you do.
I've had no other teacher.
I needed none. When are you going to leave Hobson's?
Leave Hobson's? I thought I gave satisfaction.
Don't you want to leave?
Not me. I've been at Hobson's all my life. I'm not leaving till I'm made to.
Don't you want to get on, Will Mossop? You know the wages you could get in one of the big shops in Manchester.
I be feared to go in one of them fine places.
Hobson's Choice was directed by David Lean, and it starred Charles Laughton, with John Mills as a character, Willie, the bootmaker in Hobson's shop. So the story is about a boot seller who has 3 daughters and doesn't want to let them go because they are essentially free labour. He's a skinflint. But the daughters are falling in love and getting ready to move out. But the eldest one, Maggie, the bootmaker doesn't think has a chance of getting married, and he says so vociferously. Almost to spite him, Maggie then decides that Willie, John Mills' character, is going to be her husband. So she basically tells him, right, you're my husband. And John Mills, he's got a very subtle touch for comedy. He doesn't do very many comedies, but he's got this very subtle touch in this film as a man who's completely, he's got no strength of character whatsoever. Oh, all right then, yes, I suppose so. And there's a wonderful sequence after they get married where he's nervous and preparing for the wedding night, and he's desperately intimidated by his wife, terrified of his boss, trying to work out how this whole thing is going to play out. But what Maggie knows is that he is a skillful bootmaker, so she basically gives her dad an ultimatum. You pay us or we'll go and set up against you.
One of those rather undersung David Lean films, but amongst his finest creations. What you have here is a kind of bumbling King Lear story. You have the Salford bootmaker, Hobson, played wonderfully by Charles Laughton. Charles Laughton's finest moment, I think. Mills himself thought of it as one of his great performances. And it's a lovely ensemble as a film, very funny, kind of dreamlike in its way, in this kind of world that Lean builds. It's almost an extension of Lean's sort of Dickensian London. It has wonderful shadows and this kind of damp cobbles. There's a beautiful 19th century feel to it, but there's a liveliness. It's not a comedy so much of lines and jokes. It's a comedy of characters. It's a comedy, again, because in John Mills' terms, of Britishness, of a certain vein of Britishness. That's, yes, it's sent up, it's heightened, but it's very affectionate. And I wish we'd had a bit more of Mills doing these kind of livelier roles, because he has a clownishness to him, a physicality that fits Hobson's Choice beautifully.
Mills was right back to World War II after Hobson's Choice, with 1955's The Colditz Story.
Colonel Richmond, together with one of our own men disguised as a goon, will get out of the dentist room window, march round the corner, and relieve the sentry. You'll be told he's wanted in the guardhouse. Bad news from home, or words to that effect. I myself will be in the tunnel at the exit with the turf cut, ready to open up the moment I get the signal the sentry's gone.
The Colditz Story is a classic British prisoner of war film based on Pat Reed's memoirs. Pat Reed had been incarcerated in Colditz and escaped 3 times, so I guess he knew what he was talking about. John Mills plays one of many officers who are in Colditz. It was a place specifically for officers, and those are the ones who are most likely to escape from other prisoner of war camps. And he is the one who actually is the kind of leader of the designer of any escape plans. He's no better than anybody else, he's just that he's got that kind of sense of organisation. He also has to be a bit of a diplomat because, of course, it wasn't just British officers who were there, but there were Dutch and French as well, and not everybody got on. So he's sort of working in 2 ways. He's first of all being an organizer, and at the same time he's trying to sort of keep these separate sort of national interests more or less coherent and with the same aim in mind, which is to get out of Colditz one way or another.
The Colditz Story returns John Mills to World War II, to the thing he's best known for, those characters who personify the British effort in World War II. But there's been a change. In the films he made in the 1940s to now in the 1950s, war films were more inquiring. They went deeper into the characters. They were much more, relaxed about showing the way the war worked in real terms. It wasn't propaganda anymore. It was penetration of the kind of historical terms of what the war was about. And here you have Pat Reed's story. Pat Reed was one of the very few men to escape from the castle Colditz, which was the kind of the German prison of all prisons. It's where the POWs supposedly could not escape from. It was high on this kind of ridge and it was kind of almost gothic in its style. Yet they tried, and they did succeed. And this is the Colditz story. Mills plays Pat Reed, who is a man who is almost sort of like Robert Bresson character. He's about functionality. It's about how they do these things, what the missions are. And the film has a certain documentary-like feel to it. It's about the different factions, the different countries of prisoners, and how they must unite in their plans to deceive their German captors.
Coming this way, 10 yards, 5. Hold it!
Was hast du gesagt? Du hast gesagt, no, ja, ich gehe da, wenn du auch so, du bist da reinglücklich am besten.
Well done, Pat.
In 1956, John Mills starred in The Baby and the Battleship.
Think we'll be safe here?
Well, we can't be seen from the deck. Anyway, nobody's likely to come up here.
Just a job.
The Baby and the Battleship is a chance for John Mills to return to the joys of comedy, and particularly farce. You know, a splendid British way about doing things, quite theatrical, but here given a grander scale and very effectively. In fact, what's interesting about it is John Mills brought in Brian Forbes to help spruce up the script, because this kind of format relies on its script to give it the kind of energy and the calculation it needs, because it's an absurd story, as all farces tend to be.
The Baby and the Battleship is a comedy film which was obviously influenced by the American comedies of the late 40s, early 50s, in which a bunch of men have to deal with a young baby. In this case, it's Richard Attenborough and John Mills, who are sailors in Naples, had just been docked on manoeuvres, and they're given to look after a young baby, supposedly temporarily, but somehow managed to have to smuggle it on board and in secret and keep it on the ship. This, of course, entails all kinds of sort of peculiar shenanigans where all these tough sailors, you know, all suddenly become very soft-hearted, and they're all, you know, recruited to actually take care of the baby, the infant, without the actual officers finding out or discovering his presence. I mean, it's a very, very silly film. In fact, Mills had read the original script and hated it. He thought it was really silly, and he gave it to his friend Brian Forbes, who was also in it. He said, listen, if you can rewrite this and make some sense of it and make it funny, then I'll do it.
Following The Baby and the Battleship, Mills appeared in the Hollywood blockbusters War and Peace and Around the World in 80 Days. He then returned to the setting of World War II with a trio of highly regarded films, all made in 1958, beginning with Dunkirk.
Orders to fall back, sir.
Fall back? Tell the other sergeant.
Yes, sir. We're pulling back, sir. Get moving, we're pulling back. All right, Corporal, pack it up, we're pulling back.
Why?
Don't ask me, ask the blinking generals, I don't know.
Well, we're holding them, aren't we? They're still the other side of the river, aren't they?
I don't know, I tell you. All I know is we've got to be out of here by 1900 hours now. Get moving.
Dunkirk stars John Mills, Richard Attenborough and Bernard Lee, and it is an account of the evacuation that is not dewy-eyed in its view of the events that happened. John Mills plays a corporal who is trying to flee to the evacuation. Very quickly it becomes clear that his unit has been largely destroyed. There's no officers in charge. He's got a handful of men from different regiments with him. And he is the senior soldier there, but he's only a corporal. He's not used to taking charge. He doesn't want to take charge. He wants to be a corporal. So as he has to hold this group of men together and get them through a series of incredibly dangerous encounters, we see him struggle and actually resist the idea of being in charge. He'll often try to encourage all the soldiers to contribute to what's going on, which proves disastrous. And then there's a really tough scene that he delivers incredibly well when one of their number is severely wounded and they have to take the decision to abandon him, partly because they won't make it, but also because the soldier stands a better chance of surviving if a German military doctor looks after him.
I don't feel any pain. I don't feel anything at all. It can't be bad if I don't feel anything, can it?
No, of course it can't. Of course it can't. Just a little flesh wound, I reckon. All right, son, all right. I'll lie back and rest.
What's amazing about this film is that there isn't an iota of sort of false heroism about it. This is a very, very realistic war film, and I'm amazed that it is not better known. Mills is absolutely perfect in his role here. He is an ordinary man in extraordinary circumstances who has to sort of basically rally himself. He has to talk himself into actually being a leader. He doesn't want to do it, but he understands that if he doesn't, then frankly everybody around him is going to die, and probably himself too. So it's almost as if he's been offered the chance to be responsible, and he can either take it or leave it, and he takes it.
Along with Dunkirk, Mills brought another famous event of World War II to life with I Was Monty's Double.
Finish?
Yes, have I done anything wrong anywhere?
No. That's just a formality for what comes next.
Thank you. You know, if I thought you were really a security risk, you wouldn't be here. I got quite a big file on you. I know where you went to school, who your friends are, what books you read, the lot. Oh, really? I suppose I owe you an apology. You see, I'm nothing to do with Army films. I'm an intelligence officer, and you've just been recruited. What has? A very big noise. You may not be God's gift to the theater, but you've got one special talent we need very badly. You look like Monty.
Oh, Monty, that. Why, I only did that appearance as a gag.
Well, we're going to make that gag pay off. You're going to act as Monty's double before D-Day.
I Was Monty's Double tells the remarkable story of the British actor who was employed during World War II to impersonate General Montgomery because he simply looked just like General Montgomery. The actor was called Emmy Clifton James, and it was part of the secret mission to distract the Germans, to throw German intelligence off the scent of D-Day by placing him in North Africa, by placing him away from where the real action was, where Montgomery really was going to be.
John Mills is one of the intelligence officers in charge, and he's racking his brains to come up with some spectacular scheme. Can't do it. He wanders into a theatre to see a review, and at the end of the review, General Montgomery apparently walks onto the stage to the cheers of the audience, only to reveal that he's in fact an actor who happens to look like Montgomery. Light bulb moment for John Mills. He thinks, aha, maybe this man, we can use him somehow or other. I love this film because what it does, it not just shows how you can fool people. It is a misdirection that actually works very well, but you can fool them too well because the Germans then decide to actually kidnap the supposed Montgomery. And so the final scene is incredibly tense when German commandos actually attack the place he's hiding out in. And Mills only just manages, along with his sort of comrades, to rescue him.
The third World War II film of 1958 would be one of Mills's most revered films from his entire career, Ice Cold in Alex.
Hello, Paul.
Everything okay?
Only just. It was bloody down there. They were dropping heavy stuff the whole time. We got all the wounded off all right. They have a drink?
For heaven's sake, lay off that stuff.
Why? The hell was that?
Ammo dump. Must be touching off our own stuff. Be Naffy and Paymasters first any minute now. What's the news? Men keep on asking damn fool questions. What can I tell them?
Oh, nobody seems to know what's happening. Oh, just tell them everything's going to be all right.
If there's another siege, it'll only be all right for the lucky ones that get sent out on the safe road to Egypt.
If there's a siege, you'll be one of them.
Ice Cold in Alex is, to me, John Mills' most famous film. The one I think you remember him for first. And he's terrific in it, and it's a terrific film. As much about World War II, I think, as it is about survival and humans under pressure. Again, a great subject for John Mills. He'd played Scott at the Antarctic. He was a character facing the desert as an obstacle. He plays Captain Anson, and he's part of an ambulance crew that are fleeing across the Sahara to Alexandria when the Germans take Tobruk. So there's an element of chase and peril, but really the film is about the obstacle of the desert. It's about taking this armed ambulance across this impossible terrain of sand dunes.
The crew go through a series of adventures. They bump into a South African soldier who we begin to suspect, and they suspect may be a German spy. They have to deal with attacks by the Afrika Korps. They have to dodge, all manner of obstacles. The key to John Mills' role here as Captain Anson is that he is playing an alcoholic, really someone who is, again, probably suffering from PTSD. He is very much at the edge of his nerves, and he realizes quite early on in the film that the only way he's going to get everybody home safe is if he forswears drinking, and he promises himself that he will have a beer when he gets to Alexandria, hence the title of the film. But that is the famous scene when they finally get to Alexandria and he has the beer. But it's the development of the character that I think is really compelling. John Mills has a period in his career where he's given very similar roles, this very particular kind of military character, which doesn't allow him to show the full range of his potential. In Ice Cold in Alex, you can see his ability to really perform as a film actor. He's able to show you someone right at the limits of their endurance and the limits of their mental capacity, struggling to cope, struggling to look after the people he's with. And he doesn't get this particularly in the script. It's very much done in his inability to do certain things, in the way he's holding himself together. It's a very strong film performance, and it's really, I think, one of his finest performances.
What are you going to do about him?
Nothing yet. He thinks he's safe with us. We'll let him go on thinking that. For the moment.
Ice Cold in Alex is probably the film for which John Mills will be most fondly remembered. The wonderful thing about this is that because of the way that each of these characters operate and because of the way it's filmed, and J. Lee Thompson did a magnificent job of this, because he's basically making an action film without a great deal of action, and yet the tension is very high, is that you are living every moment with them as they struggle through not just their sort of character revelations, but also a very hostile environment. So the ending is a real catharsis, not just for them, but for us.
In 1960, John Mills starred in Swiss Family Robinson.
Fritz, I think tomorrow, if the ship's still there, you and I and maybe Ernst ought to go out and try and bring in the animals if we can. Anything else we might need.
How long do you think we'll have to stay here?
Well, I don't know, Mother. I just think we ought to do everything we can.
Swiss Family Robinson, starring John Mills and Dorothy Maguire and some young actors, it's a mark, really, of the way that Mills, who had resisted Hollywood for most of his career, he'd really acted for the British audience and been popular in the UK. He had a number of opportunities to work in America, and his films were popular there. I mean, the New York Times reviews of John Mills' films are universally praising him. And this is the Grey Lady, the hardest, film reviewers in America. They loved him. It's based on a book which this film largely ignores. I mean, it takes the principle of a family that are escaping the Napoleonic Wars and are shipwrecked on an island, and then pretty much after that they make it up. And he's just enjoying it. You know, this is the slightly over-the-top acting by John Mills. He's playing this man who is trying to build a house in a tree on an island and saying to his wife, well, decent people live on the ground all the time. Won't it be nice to live up in a tree? These lines that he delivers just with this slightest touch of irony. There's a slight sense from him that he knows that this is ridiculous, but he's loving it.
Throughout the 1950s and 1960s, John Mills would frequently star with his daughter Hayley Mills in Tiger Bay, The Chalk Garden, and The Truth About Spring. One of the most popular collaborations was 1966's The Family Way.
I'll just put these outside.
What for?
You can't leave flowers in a bedroom at night, they die.
Huh?
Oh, hello, Mr. Fitton.
Did I disturb you, love?
No, I was just putting the flowers outside.
I forgot to say good night.
Oh, good night.
And, God bless.
God bless.
The Family Way is a bit of an event, really, because this is John Mills performing with his daughter, Hayley Mills, who became a very famous actress in her own right by 1966. And this is an era of the British New Wave, of much more naturalistic storytelling. And while this isn't completely a British New Wave film, it certainly harkens to that, because it's a story based on a stage play of a newly married couple, played by Hal Bennett and Hayley Mills, who are struggling to consummate the marriage. The reason being is they have to live, due to complicated circumstances, with their in-laws, his parents, the father of whom is played by John Mills. So the irony of the film, I suppose, from the outside, is that he plays the father of Hal Bennett's character and not Hayley Mills' character.
The Family Way is what might be classed as a kitchen sink comedy directed by Roy Balty, set in Lancashire, almost caricature of a northern working class lad he does ridiculous things, like he'll pour an entire bottle of ketchup over his sort of shepherd's pie, much to his wife's disgust. He says, oh, you know, what do you do with the ketchup? She said, no. He says, there's not enough. And things that sort of make you sort of ill to look at. But he's sort of, you know, it's really about a clash of cultures and about a clash of generations. It's also about approaching liberation of the sexes in the 60s. It's an amusing film, it's funny, it's terribly dated, but then it is about that age and that era. So then they captured that pretty well.
In 1970, John Mills would reunite with David Lean once again in what would be an Academy Award-winning performance in Ryan's Daughter.
Give it over, Michael. Thanks.
Rose!
Ryan's Daughter stars Robert Mitchum, Trevor Howard, Sarah Miles and John Mills. And it's really a retelling of Madame Bovary set in Ireland at a time of the battle between the IRA and the British. So all of the plot points about the unfaithful Sarah Miles, the affair she has is with a British soldier, which adds an edge to the problems that this brings. Robert Mitchum is trying to oversee this infidelity and ignore it, and he wants to make sure that she will come back to him, that the soldier will go away, and everything will be okay. But he keeps having this problem reinforced to him, and it's really John Mills who is the Greek chorus, what they would call at the time village idiot, someone who is, you know, has learning difficulties, and he slightly hams this up a little bit, and it's doesn't necessarily translate directly today. There's scenes where he's discovering the affair and the relationship, and he's quite gormless and quite clowny. But really he drives the plot forward. He is the one who's always everywhere, noticing things, saying things, because he has no barriers, he has no sense of propriety.
It's extraordinary that he should be in this character, but David Lean was a huge fan of Mills and wanted to sort of give him another role, and I think Mills wanted to do something completely different. Well, he certainly did in this. I can see where he chose some of his decisions from in creating the character of Michael, who is quite grotesque in many ways. It's almost a sort of parody of, or a caricature of, an unfortunate human being. But he took some elements from Charles Laughton's wonderful Quasimodo. You can see it in some of the gestures and the way he walks. One of the things, of course, he doesn't have is the ability to speak, so you have to sort of almost distort himself even further to convey anything that he needs to convey. The irony is that it was this role that got him the Academy Award, his first Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor, which I think tells you more about the Academy members' criteria for acting than almost anything else.
John Mills continued acting throughout his life. He was acting right up until the very end, and he would be in television dramas. He played Professor Quatermass in the series Quatermass. He had almost a cameo role, really, in Gandhi as the Viceroy, always bringing a particular presence to the screen that was believable, faithful, understated. He acted for television in the same way he acted for film, really. Incredibly naturalistic actor, incredibly convincing. And when he was given the chance to really expand out, like films like Ice Cold in Alex, actually in The Family Way, Hobson's Choice, when he's allowed to really express the full range of his ability, I think when he gets the chance to show that, there's probably almost no one of that generation who is as good a film actor.